Okay, well, let's get started. I want to first start off by thanking everyone who's watching maybe this webinar on demand or live today. We're excited to talk about why SAP IBP is the foundation for enterprise planning. Today's presentation is going to help you better understand the framework for end-to-end enterprise planning and where SAP IBP Integrated Business Planning fits into that framework. Specific solution capabilities will be presented in context of common planning processes, planning maturity levels, and advanced planning capabilities will be discussed and showcased along with various best practices and key functionality that I think will be very valuable for our listeners today. So let's go into our speakers. So myself, Frank Polito, I'm the Vice President of Strategic Growth here at Exceed Consulting. Been in supply chain now over 20 years and working in the systems, implementations, and various solutions across ERP and supply chain management. Fernando Severo, he's our supply chain planning senior consultant. He's got over 15 years experience in supply chain planning. He's an expert in S&OP, various aspects of supply chain and SAP solutions. And then the one and only Jay Foster, solution management leader at SAP with over 30 years experience across various leadership positions, both in industry and within SAP, working across various solutions and showcasing how to apply SAP technology to improve businesses across the globe. So it's an honor to have our speakers here today, and I want to thank you all for presenting with me. So just a real quick little knowledge on who Exceed Consulting is. You know, we're a global consulting firm. We're a major gold partner and subject matter expert and thought leader. We've been delivering excellence over the last 12 years across SAP solutions. We've got offices globally across North America, South America, and EMEA. We've recognized NPS scores at 8.5, which we're really proud of. And we're doing successful go-lives globally. So as you can see, we're a global entity and a very well-known thought leader in this space. And just this year alone, we've been recognized by the ISG Provider Lens as a leader in S4 systems transformations, supply chain BPO services, supply chain operations modernization services, and supply chain TMS implementation services. We take a lot of pride in showcasing our work to the ISG Provider Lens and working with SAP, and being a proud leader in these various quadrants is something we like to showcase. So we start to look at today's agenda. We're going to kind of kick it off with the urgency to modernize supply chain planning. You know, why legacy tools can't keep up with today's volatility in supply chain. Understanding the SAP Business Suite and the differentiators of SAP Integrated Business Planning. Driving transformation through SAP's Business Suite. Synchronized planning and from finance to execution, how you can connect financial, commercial, operational planning through IBP and SAP's Analytics Cloud. Building a business case for change. You know, what is the proper way to identify pain points and ROI opportunities when moving beyond legacy systems which you may have in place today. And then an interactive Q&A session along with some exclusive giveaways to have live engagement with our speakers to talk key insights. And we will be having a complimentary giveaway for a supply chain assessment for our registrants. So let's get started. This section, we're going to talk about the urgency to modernize supply chain planning, right? And why legacy tools keep up with today's why they can't keep up with today's volatility, right? 68% of companies report their current planning tools can't keep up with market volatility, and that's from Gartner Direct. Over 60% of planners still depend on offline spreadsheets to make critical business decisions. That's direct from SAP Insider. You know, global supply chains are facing unprecedented disruption from geopolitical conflict and inflation to new sustainability pressures and shifting consumer behaviors. So there's a lot of key things that are really affecting businesses' supply chains where legacy systems just can't keep up. So then when you look at the global shift towards AI-powered data-driven planning, this is the next shift of planning systems that are driven through AI. And if you look at Gartner in 2024, organizations are adopting AI-assisted planning, see more than 30% faster decision-making and 20% reduction in inventory costs, right? The next generation of supply chains is intelligent, predictive, and connected, right? Leading companies are moving towards AI-driven planning platforms that integrate every part of their business, from finance to operations, to enable real-time decision-making, right? And this is critical when you're looking at making a major transformation across your organization. So when you look at how leading companies are transforming decision-making across the value chain, here's some key things to consider, right? Industry leaders are moving beyond siloed systems to embrace integrated planning and competitive advantage, right? From fragmented operations to synchronized decision-making, from reactive firefighting to predictive agility, and from limited visibility to full transparency, right? As SAP and Gartner have highlighted, companies that modernize their planning processes are now 2.5x more likely to achieve above average growth and profitability over the next 3 years, right? And these are things that you have to be considering as you're evolving your supply chain, or you're in, a supply chain transformation. And to kind of wrap up this section, there's a lot happening in the world today, right? External forces are compounding by ill-equipped internal systems and operational struggles, right? You got to look at external forces and internal struggles, right? External forces could be global conflicts, regulatory issues, supply chain disruption, stakeholder issues, cost of capital, logistics bottlenecks. Right now, there's a lot of things happening around the globe. So you have to look at how that's going to impact your business and how are you going to have real-time visibility. And then when you look at internal struggles, it could be everything from limited end-to-end visibility across your supply chain, lack of supplier visibility, lack of end-to-end integration across your various solutions, and then dealing with firefighting, right, and manual error-prone processes. Jay, I'd love to get your feedback on some of the disruptions that you've seen in real time coming from SAP and what you've seen with some clients.
Well, there's so many disruptions. I think the thing that I would comment on this whole talk track here is disruptions aren't new. We've always had them. We will always have them in supply chain. That's never going to go away. What's been unique about the last few years is the size of the disruption and the different causes of it. Pandemic came in and we talked about that till we're blue in the face, but it totally disrupted all these global supply chains that we so carefully constructed over decades that were also very fragile. And then we have geopolitical stuff happening. We've got wars that disrupt. We have tariffs that disrupt. And we have all these geopolitical things that are piling on top of that. So the entire industry and supply chain and in business in general is very nervous. And so those unprecedented challenges you so very clearly outlined are just exacerbated by just the sheer volume of and size of disruptions themselves. So,
absolutely. So when we start to look at how SAP has positioned SAP Business Suite and the differentiators of IBP and how that can help a business, we're going to kind of deep dive into the journey to SAP's Business Suite, the future of enterprise planning. And that is all built on SAP's Business Technology Platform, BTP, right? So when you look at their cloud ERP platform, you have various quadrants, right? Financial management, spend management with business networks, supply chain management through IBP, transportation management, warehouse management, human capital management through success factors, and customer success through CX, right? SAP's built a very intelligent business suite of applications, along with Joule agents with AI end-to-end business processes. And these agents can support finance, spend agents, supply chain agents, HR agents, and CX agents, right? We're in a road of AI. and SAP has doubled down on their investment in building a full end-to-end enterprise management suite. And Jay, you're from SAP. Would love to get your thoughts on SAP's whole journey to SAP Business Suite.
Right. So there's some fundamental pillars, I guess is the word I would use, behind the business suite discussion that we're having. You have to have really three things that are really important to support all this. You have to have, first off, the right applications. That's the programs that you need to use to execute your business functions. They have to sit on data. And data is the secret key behind all of it. We have to have a data platform that is integratable, interoperable, spans all the needs from a data perspective of a company, because the third pillar is AI. How do we use the evolving technologies of AI to make our business processes more automated, make them more efficient, make them faster? And AI lives and breathes on data. And so having that three-legged stool, if you will, the applications, the programs themselves, the data itself, and then the AI to leverage that data is the secret behind the business suite.
I love it. The final note I'll leave on this slide is that SAP's Business Suite represents a comprehensive integrated set of solutions designed to streamline and connect and optimize every function across your enterprise. This architecture ensures that every corner of your business operates in sync, unlocking agility, efficiency, and innovation at scale. So, and then when we actually take a layer deeper, right, and you drive organizational wide transformation, you can look at, customer experience and the conditional contracts and sales order automation. And then when you go into supply chain management, you got extended warehouse management, advanced planning with IBP, advanced available to promise, and then human capital management, localized core HR and payroll, career and talent development, AI assisted recruiting and onboarding. And then when you go into spend management, you got central procurement, product sourcing, supplier performance and risk management. And then on the financial management side, universal journal, central finance, document and reporting and compliance, right? These are just some key functionalities that fall within that. And then we talked about AI and AI embedded business processes and modernizing the cloud connected data sources, everything from single source of truth to real-time insights, to 360 view of the business, right? This is a very comprehensive business suite that SAP goes to market with and where IBP sits. Any final thoughts on this slide, Jay?
Yeah, I think the thing that is important to understand in this middle layer that you're talking about is companies already are drowning in data. Everybody has tons of data. The question is, can I access the data? Is it contextualized correctly? Is it simple enough to even use? And so that's what we are in the business suite are trying to do, is that blue layer you show in the middle is contextualize the data, make it accessible, make it relevant, so that it's actually usable and delivers value.
Love it. Let me get to the next slide. So when we actually start to look at integrated business planning and IBP modules and the fit for purpose, you can see there's modules across demand, inventory, right? Inventory optimization, sales and operational planning, response and supply planning, and demand-driven MRP, right? When it comes to the demand planning modules for planning and forecasting, you can do better predictive customer needs and market dynamics by leveraging statistical and machine learning algorithms. With inventory optimization, you can coordinate inventory targeting, setting using multi-echelon, multi-stage inventory optimization to buffer uncertainties like imperfect forecast, demand variability, and the risk of late deliveries. And then when you look at sales and operational planning, you've got effective balance and demand of supply to attain financial targets and enable cross-functional process orchestration and collaboration. And then with response and supply, you can create a feasible and optimized supply plan, respecting capacity and material constraints, characteristics to respond to changes. And then with demand-driven MRP, this is a dynamic planning and replenishment with demand-driven MRP this is a fully integrated into your existing MRP concept, right? So, I just wanted to read a little blurb on each area, but this is a fully broken down breakdown of the IBP modules. And then, Jay, I'd love to get your oversight of, control tower and supply chain collaboration. When you look at IBP as a whole, maybe you can kind of wrap us up on this slide of key things and thoughts on your eyes.
Yeah, so I'm going to come back to this a little bit in more depth, but each of these different pieces of the platform all accomplish very specific things that are needed for you to actually manage your supply chain end to end. This graphic that we've had around for quite some time, actually, I think does a great job of talking about it. We have to not only work and collaborate internally with the company and our different business processes, but collaborate externally as well. So I think you hit on all the right things here. The real strength of SAP at the end of the day, and I'll come back to this, is that we do all of these things. And we do all these things together better than anybody else on the planet. And that's a bold statement, but I'll stand behind it because I work for them, obviously.
Yeah. So I know, Fernando, I wanted you to jump in on this slide because it really tells a great story. So why don't you take lead on this one?
Yeah, sure, Frank. Hello. Yeah, the idea of this slide is just to make sure that everyone understands where each of the models that Frank just talked about starts and ends into a planning process. And it can be like a budgeting or a standard S&OP monthly process or a approach of the weekly S&OE planning process. It doesn't matter your necessity in terms of balancing demand and supply. IBP fits very well. So, for example, let's start from the upper right of the slide. We can see that IBP has a lot of flexibility in terms of the frequency, the horizon that you are planning, the buckets, the planning buckets that you are looking for, and also the granularity. We're talking about product, customer, and location with different levels of flexibility of aggregation of and disaggregation of these levels. Right. So in the middle part of the slide, we can see that in this example, I'm showing like a standard S&OP process. So starting from demand and ending from like the executive demand planning, starting from the demand planning and finishing at the executive review, right? So a very standard S&OP process. For the demand planning process, where the S&OP for demand takes place, we are talking about all of the pre-forecasting and forecasting capabilities with a lot of AI embedded. We are talking about data cleansing, portfolio segmentation. We are talking about also the sales curve patterns to identify the ideal statistical forecasting model that you will use, and the correct collaboration between all of the areas to come up with a very good and strong consensus demand. For the next session, which is the inventory, just a highlight here, we are talking about 19 different statistical forecast algorithms, from the simplest one until the most complete and advanced with AI and machine learning embedded. In the inventory optimizer, we are talking about putting everything together in terms of demand and supply variation within the supply chain planning, the required the targets of service level, and putting together everything like from the raw material into the finished goods and intermediate to come up with the most optimized stock policy per product as you can come up with. Since you have already your demand and you have your stock policy, then response and supply kicks in with the MPS, so the master production schedule, the distribution planning, which is the DRP, right? The distribution requirement planning, with also the purchase plan to make sure that you will have different approaches to make sure that everything you will have the best supply planning as possible to make sure you will fulfill the demand and you will attend your stock policy. And finally, for this, the executive review, this is where everything comes up together with some financial views of everything that was planned before, with some high to end-to-end great visibility through the control tower that comes embedded with all of with this part of the process. So yeah, this is where everything comes together in an integrated point of view, right? So from demand until the very end financial perspective.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Fernando. And then why
Thank
don't you share about how some of these modules had success with clients?
Yeah, great, Frank. So, for example, for demand, we have some business cases for like really large industries that we could measure like almost 12% of increase in forecast accuracy just with the demand model, right? As you can see down there on the first square right there, and also a very huge improvement in terms of reduction of workload through automation of a lot of processes regarding demand planning. When we come to the inventory optimizer, we are talking about a client, a very large customer that we could reduce almost 20% of their overall stock. So we are talking about working lighter and with less stock and fulfilling the same demand, and also the same level of FTE productivity through the S&OP cycle. About the response and supply, we are talking about a customer that could reach 1% of demand fulfillment within 3 months after go live. So we are talking about fast results with the optimization, and also a significant reduction in their stock as well. And finally, for the S&OP, we have a business case of a customer that where we could decrease their MAPE, which is the opposite of forecast accuracy, right? So mean average percentage error, and also increase a lot of their productivity within the S&OP cycle. So these are some examples. We have quite more.
Nope, this is wonderful. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go here. So one of the main things that we wanted to showcase today is why, choosing SAP IBP over the competition is so compelling, right? There's a lot of competition out there, right? There are a lot of competitors that say they do many things, but at the end of the day, many of them have various weaknesses where SAP strengths just are, very compelling, right? On the side of the strengths of SAP IBP, fully scalable, right? Complete platform, agile implementation, right? Continuous innovation, multi-industry coverage, right? And the list goes on. But then when you start to look at the competition, some of the key weaknesses that I just going to point out, right? Restricted scope, right? To scale across enterprise applications. Limited expertise and collaboration with supplier and inventories, right? Narrow focused on the role of the supply chain planners and inventory management. Or maybe they're weak in demand planning, inventory optimization, or production planning and detailed scheduling. This is more of a takeaway slide. We'll share today's presentation, but we thought that this would be a really nice slide to kind of do a little comparative contrast. And when you start to look at the main overall strengths of SAP IBP and really what differentiates us, right, as an organization and as a solution, it's a complete end-to-end integration with both in-house SAP solutions and third-party solutions. And that's something that's very compelling about integrated business planning, right? It's a complete and intelligent platform, multi-industry coverage. It's built to scale and has the flexibility to scale, real-time collaboration and visibility, very niche, agile implementation, fast adoption. And then they have quarterly updates and AI investment. They've made a huge investment in the AI side, right? So SAP IBP stands out not only as a comprehensive planning solution that combines analytical power and complete integration, but it has the flexibility of a single platform. And Jay, I'd love to give you a moment to share what you feel are some of the key strengths that have SAP IBP stand out.
Yeah, so there's one of these items that I want to focus on, and they're all very important, but one of them I cannot emphasize enough. I never want to trivialize integration because integration is a complex topic regardless, but to integrate a planning solution with your ERP solution, in our case, with our ERP solutions, we have over 500, and I don't remember what the exact number is, but it's well over 500 different data elements that we're integrating. We provide the mapping for, whether you're on our legacy platform, ECC, or whether you're on the S4 platform, we provide and maintain that mapping between these solutions. Now, that may seem like it's a simple thing to say, but like I said, I never want to trivialize integration, but we make it as easy as is possible. I didn't say easy, but easy as possible to stand up your planning environment with your ERP and other systems as well. So I just wanted to focus on that one particular thing. I could talk extensively on all of them because they're all valuable, but that's the one to me that for most companies is probably one of the bigger cost savings that's hidden underneath the covers. So I'll stop there.
I love it. And Fernando, I'd love to give you an opportunity to share, if you were to summarize key strengths, what really stands out to you?
Yeah, I would say that one of the most impressive things about IBP is the integration between both like really different platforms, the web platform and the Excel approach of IBP, and putting everything together on a cloud solution that is user friendly for those who are used to use Excel, and for those like the let's say the newcomers that prefer a different interface with some like a lot of different apps approach and a lot of different possibilities of working with both worlds together. This is one of my favorite things about IBP.
Got it. Thanks for sharing. So this is where we're going to hand it off to our good old buddy Jay Foster at SAP. I've watched Jay speak on many forums, webinars, and he's going to share today about the urgency to modernize supply chain planning. So Jay, the floor is yours. Let me give you access and you can take it from here.
Sounds good. So before I actually even get into the slides, I want to talk about something that, Frank, that you said previously. Both Gardner and us at SAP have talked about the challenges with legacy tools. Now, what was hidden in one of the slides that you went through that probably skipped by a lot of people's attention is they talked about modernizing process. So as a supplier of software, I'm not going to talk about software in my part of this today. I'm going to talk about process because to me, that's the bigger issue facing most companies. True that the tool set can hold you back, but for most companies, what I'm observing is the fact that the processes are holding them back. So let me take you through a few processes that I think are relevant to our discussion today. I like to start off when I talk about planning, which is my specialty and background. What does enterprise level planning actually look like? So it starts off with this thing that we call strategic planning. And that's where the executives of a company go off site with a strategy consultant like a McKinsey or Bain or somebody like that. And they set the aspirational direction of the company for the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, depending on the industry. They're deciding what markets to go into and come out of, what products to introduce, which ones to take out, what projects they're going to undertake. And it's typically a longer relevant planning horizon. However, on the shop floor every day, we'd have something called operational planning and execution. That also has an acronym, sales and operations execution. There's a whole bunch of acronyms part. Don't worry about it for right now. How do I translate that strategic plan that's for the direction of the company to the things I do on the shop floor every day? And so there's a couple of steps that have to happen. The first is I have to turn that strategic plan into a financial plan. That's financial planning and analysis, also called the budgeting cycle. That has different names as well. But basically, I'm translating that company strategy into the financial part of supporting operations, providing cash for operations, because what finance does is it provides enough money, allocates the money, acquires the money necessary to run the company. And it looks at all the planning horizons, but it really focuses on what I would call the current fiscal year. And then when you get into the budgeting cycle, the next fiscal year. However, I have a financial plan which reflects the company's strategy. How does that relate to what I'm doing on the shop floor? How do I align that? And the last part that closes that gap is what we call sales and operations planning or integrated business planning. Those are both processes, okay? We have also the names of our platform and some of our tools, the SAP Sales, but I want to talk about the process. And that takes that financial plan and aligns it what we're doing on the shop floor every day to achieve the company's goals. Every company does this. They may call it different things. They may have slightly different cycles, but every company does this because it's a necessary part of running a successful company. So that's what enterprise business planning looks like at a very high level. So before I get too far off into some more of these details, why do we care so much about planning? Well, the reality is what you're seeing here is data that I've collected for years, basically from different case studies and white papers and stuff that gets published, and from our own value engineering group inside of SAP, where we talk to our customers quite a bit. And so I'm going to ask you some rhetorical questions. If you went to your leadership and said, a mature planning process will drive top line 1% revenue growth, the smallest number of the smallest range, would that be a good thing? And of course, the obvious answer to that is yes. And I'll pick another thing here. If I just having a better planning process could drop inventory levels, that's working capital tied up in inventory, that's cash. If I could reduce that by 5%, would that be a good thing? And of course, again, the obvious answer is yes. And all these things are actually tangible, measurable benefits of having a mature planning process. And that's why we do it, and that's why we care so much. But the key word in this phrase is mature planning process. So I love pictures because I think that it really tells a story. We talked about the business suite overall and how planning works across the business suite. This is another view, a simplistic view, but I think one that makes a lot of sense. So I want to take that planning process we talked about before and break it down a little bit. So first off, strategic planning, we talked about that. Here's a revelation. SAP doesn't have a solution for strategic planning the way I described it. That's not what we do. There's actually not a real market for it. The strategy consultants have their own spreadsheets and methodologies they use. But from a commercial perspective, it's not a marketable product. From the definition that I use, we don't supply that. However, we do have a solution for FP&A, the business process of financial planning. And that's our SAC for planning solution. And it does a whole bunch of stuff, not just the 3 little boxes you see in this box, but I just wanted to give you a representative example. And you'll see it's hard to tell in the colors, but there's a little whirly bird, a circle, a tornado, call it what you wish, in the center, which represents the fact that that is an iterative, ongoing process. Now we tie that together to close in the gaps like we talked about before into something called S&OP or IBP, the business processes. And we have a platform that does all those things as well. Again, a simplified example. And the little whirlybird represents the fact that that is also an iterative process. Now here's the catch. The cadence of FP&A and the cadence of S&OP are usually not the same, and that's okay. And there's an iterative process goes back and forth. As data changes on each side, it sends that information back and forth between those solutions to help you keep them in sync so that your operational plan is being generated out of your S&OP process or IBP process accurately reflects and aligns with the company's strategic plan. But that's not all. That's just a piece of it. So let's talk about commercial planning for those industries that do commercial planning. 2 outputs come from commercial planning, and they go to different places. From an FP&A perspective, I want to know what my trade spend is. What is it going to cost me to market this stuff? What's it going to give me in terms of a revenue uplift? From an S&OP perspective, I care a little bit more about what's my volumetric uplift? And what products is it going to cannibalize? Where am I going to get my lift? How is it going to impact my supply chain? So these are not unidirectional errors. These are actually, they are unidirectional errors, one-way errors, not bidirectional like we had before. And typically that's how the flow works in most cases. That's still not all though, when we're looking at enterprise planning. I can't leave out HR because that's an important part. We actually do headcount planning inside our financial planning solution right now, but our management part of this is done in the HRMS system. Now, I don't have an error between the S&OP process and the HRMS process. However, there are certain industries that their labor requirements are directly related to their volumetric requirements, what they're producing, the volumes are producing. And for those industries, there should be an arrow drawn in for that. And yet I'm still not done. I feel like a Ronco commercial, but wait, there's more. And those of you not old enough to know what Ronco is, it's a television marketing campaign. So that takes us to the ERP solution. Your ERP solution is where all the transactions happen. That's where all the data is actually stored that drives a lot of the stuff. And so the S&OP process has to talk to your ERP, your financial planning process has to talk to your ERP. Actually, commercial might talk directly to your ERP as well as HRMS, but for right now, I've just drawn those arrows. And then once a year, I rinse and repeat, and I start this whole thing all over again from a strategy perspective for updates. Now, I'm still not quite done. This is all internal to an organization. What about my trading partners? Well, I have to reach out to the trading partners. Now, we do this through something called supplier collaboration. From a transactional perspective, our ERP talks to our trading partners to issue purchase orders and receive invoices, get advanced shipping notices, etc., and look at potential inventory balances. From a planning perspective, I need to be able to send that plan of what I'm going to need over the relevant planning horizon for supply chain to make sure that they have the capacities to meet that, and I can incorporate that information in my planning. So this is all a part of that collaborative end-to-end planning process. This is all process. We're not caring about product right now, just process. And these processes exist in most companies. And if you have mature processes with the right tool set, you're going to get the values that we talked about before. Now let's break down this whole thing kind of called maturity before. This is a model that's based on what Gartner produced. They actually coined, I think, the curve labeled it themselves. And what you're seeing here is a 5-stage model. Across the top, the 5 stages: react, anticipate, integrated, etc. Down the left-hand side are categories of business behaviors. And they have created a matrix that basically says there are certain behaviors in each level. And so I'm going to blow through these. We're not going to talk about all of them, but in my reactive stage, that's level 1, there's a group of behaviors that happens inside each of these categories of business behaviors. When I go to stage 2, they change slightly. And here's an interesting thing. Gartner surveys their customers, their companies that they provide services to every year. And for the past decade that I've been tracking this number stands pretty constant. Roughly 2/3 of all their customers, and these are Gartner's words, are stuck in stage 1 or stage 2. Now, you remember that slide had all those values that you can get from a mature planning process? Stage 1 and stage 2 is not a mature planning process. So we move to stage 3, the values start to get more specialized, if you will, and more sophisticated. Then we get to stage 4, and now things are really starting to happen. When you start hitting stage 4 and then ultimately stage 5, that's where you start recognizing all those values that we talked about in that value slide. And so as you go across the different maturity levels, you get better benefits, and that's the simple end of the day. And this is a whole day conversation to have in depth with a company. So I just did 2.5 minutes, but that's what's important to understand is you not only have to have the right tools, you have to have the right processes, the right business behaviors in order to reap the results that you want and what mature planning can provide. So I use this slide to talk about planning. Again, that's my area of focus. Those are all the business behaviors, a framework that we call Design to Operate at SAP. And basically, all the stuff that happens in this circular swim lane thing that goes back and forth, all based on the plan. And absence of a plan is still a plan, by the way. You just don't realize that you have one. It's not very effective usually. So all these downstream things, what you buy, what you manufacture, what you sell, what you deliver, how you maintain your assets even, all are a result of what you're planning on doing. And so that's that Design to Operate framework, which is the key to our business suite at the end of the day. So there's a nice other picture of our business suite. We saw the fan before. This is more of a circular thing. Basically, turning that swim lane process we talked about into an iterative cycle, a circle of continuing activity at a company. And so at this point, I will stop because I know that we have limited time and there are other people that have to speak after me. Hopefully this has been helpful. I'm going to iterate what was on one of Frank's slides earlier, is that it's modernizing your process, not just your technologies, how you get the results that you want. That's how you stay nimble. That's how you get the value of the company. That's how you become resilient. Choose your adjective for your company. It doesn't really matter. It all is about modernizing your processes as well as your technology. And back to whoever's next. I guess that's you, Frank. Or who?
Yep. Yeah, Jay, that was great. Thank you so much for going into that so much great detail. So I appreciate you going through that section. So now we start to look at from legacy to value, right? Building the business case for change, right? One of the biggest challenges for many companies is getting executive stakeholder support, sign off, and really showcasing the value of any solution, let alone SAP IBP, right? I mean, it's really building that business case. And how do you do that, right? Identify pain points. Why either your legacy systems are holding you back, right? And before you can build a business case, an organization must recognize how their current tools are limiting their business performance, right? Across industries, there's 3 main points that are consistent, right? Fragmented processes and lack of visibility, reactive instead of predictive and decision making, right? Or high costs of inaction, right? These just some high level points, and there's sub bullets there. But when you look at it, 72% of supply chain executives say their planning processes are still siloed between departments, and that's direct from Gartner, right? Organizations using manual spreadsheets based off of planning spend 30% more managing exceptions than those of AI supported systems, right? That's from Harvard Business Review. So there's a lot of key things that you need to identify when you're working to build a business case. And you got to look for those ROI opportunities, right? Return on investment, the value of innovation with SAP, right? Operational efficiency, financial impact, strategic agility and resilience, right? When you're going to implement an intelligent integrated business solution like SAP IBP, it needs to enable measurable business outcomes across multiple dimensions of your business. And if you can showcase that prior to getting executive sign off or support, that is critical in building up a business case. And here are some practical steps to assess readiness, right? To map the transformational roadmap, assess your current maturity and its gaps, right? Benchmark some of your current planning tools, processes, your integration level, right? Quantify value and build the business case. Define key KPIs, if it's forecast accuracy, service level, inventory turns, planning productivity, whatever it may be, and design a phased low risk roadmap, right? Doesn't have to be a big bang. It can be a phased approach, right? Start small. Focus on one planning process. If it's demand or S&OP, try to have it where you can deliver early wins. And then from there, work with a partner that's certified, that is an implementation expert that can accelerate results and mitigate risk, right? That's critical. And when you're looking at why SAP Integrated Business, why build a business case now versus later, right? You gotta look at IBP's built to be on the cloud, right? It's scalable, cloud native platform that's always up to date, right? AI powered forecasting, connected to planning to enable real-time collaboration, end-to-end visibility, right? And it is critical when you're looking at a tool like IBP that you're going to develop a business case. And 2026 is right around the corner, right? So transforming your supply chain to have that real-time AI-powered, fully connected business system is something that you can use to your advantage. So that's today's presentation. We want to kind of open it up for some Q&A for our speakers. But before we do that, we want to give you some key takeaways. Why IBP for foundation of enterprise planning, right? Invest in intelligent integration and innovation, not just automation, right? See the limits of legacy tools. They can't cut it in today's world, right? Disconnected systems and spreadsheets just can't deliver real-time visibility or give you the resilience in today's supply chain, right? Discover the power of integration. Understand how SAP IBP connects not only with SAP solutions, but other external solutions and giving you the ability to scale. And then leveraging AI in a smarter planning, embedded AI in your supply chain planning solution, that's where the world's going. So having smarter planning is critical. And then measuring that value and not complexity, right? Learn how integrated business planning can drive up to 80% financial performance and variance through better alignment and visibility, right? And build your roadmap to resilience. These are key things that you need to consider as you consider a big move to a major planning system. And just a little plug for Exceed, we invest so much in working with SAP and the go-to-market to help clients across multiple vertical industries. If it's support with you during the sales cycle, performing demos, we can do intelligent migrations, both from legacy systems of SAP or other systems outside of SAP. We've invested in technology innovation, building AI-driven apps on the SAP App Store, and we have what we call smart packs. These are AI accelerators that allow us to implement IBP at an accelerated rate, which lowers your risk and increases your time to value significantly. And as a thought leader, we're doing webinars around the road. We're doing private events around the road. We're working with SAP in live events, and we're a leader in the App House network for technology innovation. So, you know, when you're looking at a potential partner in these areas, key takeaways for Exceed Consulting is that we're a leader for the last 12 years, an award-winning company in delivery excellence, digital supply chain leaders. We have the AI Smart Pack accelerators. We support small, mid-sized companies all the way up to large enterprise. And we've got a world-class customer success partner program that we've heavily invested in the success of our clients. And with the highest level of expertise in supply chain, BTP, cloud ERP, we've proven our investment and working with SAP. And as a giveaway to those that are watching this on demand or here today, take a scan of the QR code, unlock a free first level supply chain assessment. This is a $20,000 value, free for you as a thank you for your attending today's webinar and our commitment to work with SAP to support clients on their journey to SAP Business Suite and IBP. So this assessment can help identify quick wins and long-term opportunities leveraging SAP, benchmark your supply chain against industry leaders, and receive expert recommendations tailored to your business. No strings attached, no obligations, just real value delivered for you. So act now, and feel free to take, again, a scan of this QR code and fill out the form. We'd love to help you any way possible. So I believe we've got 10 minutes left. We wanted to leave this time open. Go into the chat. I believe there's a chat. You can ask questions. Feel free to ask questions. If there's anything that you want to take advantage of, Jay, myself, or Fernando to answer any questions, we'd be happy to. So one question I had for you, Jay, is you've presented so many of these types of webinars as a thought leader, both just as a supply chain expert, but as a systems expert. SAP's made a huge investment into what they're doing with AI, what they're doing with SAP Business Suite and integrated business planning. And, from an overall viewpoint, if you could summarize why someone should choose SAP over any of the many competitors out there, how would you summarize that?
Well, back to one of the pillars I talked about before, we have the applications,
Yep.
we have the data, and we have the AI. And those are the three pieces that really help this transformation to a more AI-driven technology and business process and outcome. So at the end of the day, those remain I think the biggest advantages for SAP in the offering, and what differentiates. We own all the data. We own the ERP. We own the planning. We own the pieces that are necessary. We have applications that service tons of different kinds of functions that we obviously couldn't even brush the surface of today. So with the data and with the applications, then we have a much better way of applying AI to get results.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a huge differentiator for us.
And Fernando, I got a question for you. When seeing the impact that IBP has had on clients, I'd love for you to share some of what you've witnessed working with SAP and clients around, we'll call it near-term value add, right? Quick wins. What are some of the best quick wins at go live or shortly after go live that you've seen clients gain by an investment into IBP? And then after maybe sharing some of those quick wins, maybe share some of the long-term wins that you've observed that have had a significant impact on businesses and clients.
Yeah, great question, Frank. I will highlight two points. All right. So first, quick win is more like a qualitative approach. It's the integration of the process. So we start after implementing IBP. Normally, the companies stop working as silos. You know, we have the demand area, we have the supply area, we have the financial area. Now you have the really real integrated business planning. So everyone work on the same platform. The collaboration occurs on the same platform. The supply planning occurs on the same platform. Demand planning. So everyone, we have a single source of truth where everyone works on the same platform, and we have the entire company runs through the same objective. So there's one common objective that everyone works together to achieve. This is the first thing that I highlight. And the second thing that I highlight, which is a real quick win, is something that Jay Foster covered, AI, and a lot of the companies are let's say, investing in AI, but none of them investing as hard as SAP, and for one important part as well, which is the data management. When we are talking about a system, one of the most important part to make sure it is correct to to extract the most of the system is the master data. And IBP also has a very good solution with AI embedded that automatically analyze your master data and create some outputs based on how probable is that master data to be wrong. So you can direct your analysis to make sure your, let's say, your basis is correct. So you can extract actually what is the most from the system. So, and this is a huge quick win for everyone that implements a new system, particularly a planning system.
No, I appreciate you sharing. And Jay, I had one final question for you. You know, some people that are extremely familiar with SAP know the level of investment that both the partner channel and SAP has invested to make their solutions affordable, okay, scalable, and the ability to get them live quickly, right? There's people that aren't super familiar with SAP may look at SAP as Goliath, right? Or their systems may be complex and things like that, right? And there's a lot of, you know, sometimes stereotypes, not just SAP. Same thing applies for other major tech companies. I'd love to hear your feedback on overcoming some of those maybe naysayers or some of those myth busters or stereotypes around actually SAP can be very affordable and it can be implemented in a very cost-effective way, in a very timely way. So what are some of the things that you've seen addressing some of those maybe poor opinions or thoughts?
Well, actually, that's a valid point, and let me try to address a couple of reasons why that point, that belief exists and persists even today.
Yeah.
Now, traditionally, our on-premise solutions that we had, almost all of our customers decided to customize the daylight stuff. That's sort of what the whole industry did back in the day, to use that phrase. And that adds expense and complexity and increases maintenance costs and makes it harder to use to get that little bit of customization so it can be exactly what they want it to be. The evolution of what we've done as a platform delivering public cloud solutions means that with a high amount of configurability as opposed to customization, coupled with partners like Exceed that provide offerings that are at a reasonable scale and reasonably affordable, have changed how SAP goes to market. The surprising statistic is that while we do have the majority of the Fortune 500 on our solutions, at least one of our solutions, we have more customers that are mid-market than we have that are large enterprise. Yeah. That's the statistic most companies don't recognize, and that's due to the change in our platform and its capabilities and the offerings of our partners like Exceed.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly said. And I think this is really important to share kind of as we wrap up, because as companies are evaluating, you know, upgrading their system, making a move to a new solution, SAP and partners like Exceed have invested a lot in trying to make that transition less riskful, right? More of a value add in the near term to get immediate wins for your business. And I think that's just really important to kind of share today. And any final thoughts from today's speakers that we wanted to share?
So we have a question that came in that I think we ought to address.
Okay, yeah.
It says, the question is, and Fernando, I'll let you take this first shot at it. Based on your experience, is there a business process or an IBP module that companies choose first to start supply chain projects? For example, forecasting, S&OP, production planning, and so on. So you want to take that one first?
Yeah, sure. Great question. I think very very important. Normally, the initial approach is having the S&OP model, which covers, let's say, kind of between quotes, a little bit of everything, and the demand model. If you are on a make-to-stock company, normally having the correct demand for the rest of the company is normally the most important approach, so the most correct approach. So normally the companies start with the S&OP, then the demand, or in both of them in parallel, then the inventory optimization, and then the response and supply model. And inventory control tower, which is not inventory control tower, which is a smaller model focused on alerts and dashboards. It can also be done in parallel, but yeah, I think these are the two normally initial approaches, S&OP and demand.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I absolutely concur with that.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. I was going to say, Jay, do you have any other insight on that? But yeah, absolutely. Those modules are what I've traditionally seen put in first. But I will say this, every client and every business is different. So depending on what that business case identifies, right, when you're actually building that business case, building that roadmap, looking at a phased approach, if you have specific pains in various areas of your business that would put one of those modules first over the next, then ultimately during that discovery phase is when you really identify what module to go with first. But most commonly we've seen is the demand and S&OP modules, but I've seen it adjusted differently based off of building a really good, intimate business case and roadmap that fits the needs of your business. So that would be my final thought. Does that make sense, Jay?
Yeah, it does. And I'll make one additional comment as well. We design the solution to be a start anywhere, go anywhere solution. So there's not a linear dependency on the different components of the IBP platform. You can start with supply, and some companies do because that's where their pain point is, as Frank mentioned. But the most common is the scenario that Fernando laid out.
Okay, well, I know we're at time. I want to thank everybody for joining today, both in person and on demand. I'll put up this QR code. If you want to get in contact with me for anything, you can grab my information right there. My counterpart, Paulo Marini, is our head of sales North America. We want to thank our speakers. Jay Foster, thank you so much. Fernando, thank you as well. This was an honor to present with the two of you. And I hope you and all of our listeners have a wonderful week and a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.